Welcome to Trail Manners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for Trail Manners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails. Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the Trail Manners Podcast, episode number 19. Today, we are at Park City Running Company, and we're going to be talking to Suzanne Lewis. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Trail Manners Podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trail Manners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. Hello and welcome back to the Trail Manners Podcast. Got a special episode today. We are at Park City Running Company. We kind of have taken over the shop a little bit. I'm sitting here today with Joel. And Joel, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest?
Yeah, so we have a special guest today. Suzanne Lewis is sitting with us. Suzanne, how you doing?
Great today. Thanks, Joel. How are you?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for coming all the way up here to Park City. And thank you to Park City Running Company for hosting us today. Yeah.
I'm enjoying a wonderful latte right now made by Canis.
Yeah, I've got a dirty chai, and I think I just introduced Eric to the dirty chai as well.
I've got a dirty chai, so near the end of this podcast, I might be a little amped.
Yeah.
So I apologize now.
That's like my biggest weakness is dirty chai right now.
And who was the maker of our nice beverage today? Park City Running Company
did.
Canis.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, they got a coffee shop. How cool is this?
I know. I walked in the door and I smelled coffee, and I'm like, yeah, we could stay here for a while.
I know, right? The only thing that would make it better is to follow that up with, a keg, like Lagunitas or something like that.
We haven't inspected the whole store yet.
No, and I think that might be hiding in the back. So if we disappear later and we haven't made it home, you know where we're at. So again, we do have a special guest with us today. Suzanne Lewis, you are a registered dietitian. Correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, Joel.
Yeah. You
passionate about nutrition.
Went to the University of Utah?
I did. I was lucky to go there in about 2005. I enjoyed master's program there and did my dietetic internship there as well.
Awesome. Besides being a rock star dietitian, you're also a trail runner.
Yes.
You have a pretty good resume. So, I can just read a couple off real quick. So, 2-time finisher of Hard Rock.
Yes.
Yeah. Finished Wasatch 100 a few times, the Bear 100, Bighorn 100. Then you did some of the JV races like Miwok, Kachina Mosa, Speed Goat. I can go on and on. So you're actually preseason trail runner.
I've been at it for a little while, and I love it. So, and here in our beautiful mountains, the Wasatch, we are just so blessed. We're at the base of the most beautiful trails. So, I've enjoyed running in different parts of the West.
Right on. That's good. So, a couple things we wanted to talk to you about today was obviously nutrition, and then we'll talk about kind of your running and what you do and what your goals are. So, let's kind of maybe get into the nutrition side of it first, if you don't mind. Sure. And one of the things that, we're just coming out of winter here in the Wasatch, thank goodness. We're all trying, well, not all of us. Some of us are trying, especially Eric and I, to get to a good race weight. And how is that possible to do, one, in a reasonable time frame, and two, how do you maintain that year-round? So what's your take on that?
Okay, that's a great question. You're absolutely right. A lot of us, we tend to be a little less active in the winter. Maybe we still eat just maybe as much as we did when we were training hard. So that tends to be a few pounds over the winter, and that's pretty normal. It's healthy to gain a little weight just to keep warm. But as a runner, as you're getting ready to think about the training season ahead, a lot of us do think, well, hey, I'd like to drop a few pounds. My personal feeling is that this ideal racing weight is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of that there isn't one ideal weight for us. And really, when it comes down to it, starting to think about your training season ahead. Usually in the beginning, early season, you might start to be a little more active. Cutting your calories a little bit to reduce weight is certainly one option, but you really want to think about that ramping up your training. You don't really want to be in weight loss mode during your training and focus training season. Mainly because you do need that extra energy to actually keep up your energy to be training and get the most out of your workouts.
Right, so maybe during your base phase is when you kind of dial it in, right? And you kind of get in that phase that you're most comfortable with your body, right, as far as that weight goes. I think that's maybe a better way to describe that. And that's what it kind of sounds like you're trying to
sort of reaching that balance, getting a little more back into I really feel that matching your food and your activity is really important. That it's really a dynamic process. It's very personal for a lot of us in terms of what works well, but maintaining an ideal race weight through the year is really not a goal that I would recommend for people. That it usually does, if you are anything like myself, I know that at certain races I've felt like I've been a little lighter. Maybe at certain races I've been a little heavier. I don't know that trying to achieve the ideal weight is really going to get us to the point where we're truly fueling and healthy through the year. So
you brought up a good point then. So being healthy through the year, what would be kind of, if you've got a new client, and this client's a runner, maybe two runners, maybe two fat old guys. I'm not saying it's Eric and I, but...
Even though you looked right at me.
Well, no, I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page. So how would you advise, a new client to be healthy then through the whole year? Because the client's goal is to run as well as they can, right?
Absolutely.
And that's the end goal, right? Run as well as they can and be healthy. And that's kind of like the overall kind of point that maybe we'll take away from this conversation is running well and being healthy at the same time for your life as a runner.
For a life as a runner. Yeah. I think when I think about athletes and even just people getting more active, really what it comes down to is what is your day-to-day look like? A lot of times we think of specific things for training and racing, and that is important. But for health, really, it's getting those fundamentals. And a lot of people, a lot of us, it's a struggle to get those things that are high in nutrient and probably not very calorie dense. So following a real high
what would be an
nutrient
example of
eating
that?
plan.
Give us an example of that.
Right. I'm thinking foods like obviously the fruits and veggies, but really for training, I do focus on a lot of the whole grain carbohydrates, the carbohydrates that are going to be slower burning, that provide a lot more nutrition. So I do think when I'm thinking about someone coming into a counseling situation, it's more about starting from where they are. So not trying to change the complete eating pattern, but really starting to look at what does your eating look like through the day? Are you someone that's skipping breakfast and maybe therefore getting too hungry later in the day and maybe snacking on the high, sugars and things like that, where your energy is going to drop low and then you get into a cycle, there. So I think really getting to a consistent pattern where you're getting good nutrients in on a regular basis through your day is probably one of the things that I would first start working with people on, is just really focusing in on the quality of the foods they're eating at a regular, consistent pattern over the day.
That's huge, that quality, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think just looking at all three of us here at the table, we're all kind of shaking our heads, yes. The quality trumps everything, right?
Absolutely. It's a little bit like the fuel in your car. I mean, I know we use that mentality, that metaphor, and what kind of fuel you're putting in there. Certainly, I think another thing that we need to remember is enjoyment of food, actually, and that, there are cases where people get overly concerned about restricting only eating the perfect foods, and that can actually backfire as well.
Absolutely. I can see that. If you're like, oh, I can only have this grass-fed, 8-month-old cow from southern Idaho.
Right.
That's going to kind of screw things up.
It makes your food choices really limited, and it makes it harder to stick with eating well over time.
So you should have kind of that latitude to be like, okay, for 80% of the time, I'm going to stick this way, right? And maybe 20%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Finding your balance. I think that if you're having significant food cravings and things like that, especially during training when you're an athlete, if you are finding yourself craving foods and things like that, you might want to look at your overall pattern as well to think maybe I'm not getting enough calories, maybe I'm not getting the quality,
right?
Maybe my body is not getting the nutrients that I need to keep me kind of balanced, keep my energy maintained. And really keep me training and even mentally focused on my race in the way that I could be.
So give me an example. Early on,
Yeah.
you talked about a few things that kind of hit home with me. One is winter weight. I mean,
Yes.
I still got winter weight from 2010 that I'm packing around. I
right.
can't seem to lose. And then losing weight. I want to drop at least a kindergartner or a first grader before the
Right.
season's over. But when you want to say you want to lose weight, but you want to train. So I've done this before where I've done kind of a more of a whole food approach. But I've noticed like first couple weeks, my energy level, my time on the trail, it suffers really bad. But then your body adapts to it and you start to pick up that energy. Is there like a transition type of, I don't know, I want to say eating habit, I guess is the best way to transition.
Yeah.
To make sure you have energy, but you also maybe are restricting your carbs or your calories, but you still have that energy?
Yeah, there's definitely, one, certainly when you're looking to cut calories, where are you going to do that? I
Right.
mean, there's times where cutting the carbohydrates a little bit, rather than following a very high carbohydrate diet, maybe dialing that down, increasing your protein intake a little bit, getting those healthy fats. So you could, replace some of the carbohydrates, which are the more calories there, with some of the lower carbohydrate foods, like even fruits and vegetables and even things like beans. But these are all things that do require, your body has to adapt to being efficient using, a little higher fat diet, for example. So you can, it definitely, I would say consistency is one of the big keys with any kind of eating approach and finding what works for you. So you mentioned that time it takes to get trained, to get used to this eating plan, and then really getting your body kind of used to that consistent intake of these nutrients. I think that's what I find a lot of people maybe struggle with, is the consistency over time, and they maybe don't get to that point where they start to really see the benefits of
Right.
those high nutrient foods.
Well, and I think as we've
Yeah.
talked about even on the show, it's just so easy to not eat healthy because
It
of
is.
the conveniences.
Yep.
I'm in a hurry because no one has enough time in the day. So you're driving by, oh, look, there's, taco time or, whatever it might be.
time.
I just
It's
threw that out
true.
there because taco sounds pretty good. But you find the easy foods. But that healthy lifestyle, the stuff that you almost have to, and I've done this in the past, you have to really plan for. You have to stock the fridge. You have to prepare the food early. But it's more of a, not just a planning your meal, but having it available.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right that the environment plays a huge role in what we eat. And if there's a lot of research studies to show that, the larger the portion of chips that are right in front of you, the more likely you're going to eat more. And that's just natural human. In fact, the way we evolved was that food was scarce. And so, it was very adaptive for us to eat more when we had it.
Right.
So now we're just we have to adapt and get smart about our eating environment. And I think you're absolutely right, Eric. Focusing in on little tricks like that is huge. Setting your environment up to support what you're up to. And I also think being active, I don't know about you guys, but I find that the experience of learning how to eat while you're running or while you're doing a sport gives you this real in tune sense with what feels good, you start to really think about, does this feel good? Do I want to eat this food? How is that going to feel later when I'm really wanting to get my good workout in? So I think activity really supports that eating in that lifestyle.
Yeah, I think leading up to so if you look at this over the course of a week and how you train, you touched on this really well. So say like last night, if you're eating like a big old fat burrito, then this morning, you're not going to feel like going and or your training's not going to be as good as it could have been because you made that poor choice last night, right? And then it almost cascades sometimes. We're like, oh, I didn't train today, I can eat crappy again today because I'm going to get back at it tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the old adage: if I'm gonna train tomorrow so I can eat that whole pizza today, or have
Right.
that ice cream tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do think you're right that getting into the habit of using exercise as a way to just burn off calories because you ate something that you felt guilty about really does set you up in terms of a negative feeling about exercise as well, where you
Right.
start to feel like it's a punishment because you ate, your favorite food. So I really feel like enjoying what you're doing. So, running, if that's your thing, enjoy that. And I think many of us here on this podcast probably do, but I really feel like it's so important not to be too focused on only the health benefits, that you really want to focus on what feels good and what you enjoy. So I think maybe enjoying that burrito once in a while, hey, that's good.
Well, so I think you just touched on something that's important, and I think a lot of people are struggling with this right now is they don't know what it actually feels like to be healthy because they're getting this constant, trigger from either taco time or they're driving by the gas station, and all of a sudden they have that subliminal cue of, oh, hey, I want to go over there and get a soda.
Right.
Now, I don't drink soda. Eric doesn't drink soda, but I'm saying I think a lot of people struggle with that.
I think you're absolutely right. I do agree that there are a lot of things in the food industry right now that these highly palatable foods, they call it, where they are literally adding things that trigger some of our evolved, another thing was we evolved to want to eat sugar when it was available because we didn't have access to very much sugar when we were, evolving. So I think we have the same with fats and even sodium, salt, where these are very highly palatable. We have a higher response rate to these foods. And so the industry is not necessarily helping us with choosing these foods. They're too prevalent at
They're
this
not
point.
They're not your friends.
So you got to hit that magic recipe so you buy more of the stuff.
That's right.
Right?
I mean that's what it's all
That's
about.
right.
But I think we come back to the point is I think we don't have that intuition anymore. We've kind of lost that intuition of I don't really need to eat anymore because it's that constant stimulus that's all around us now.
Yeah, it is possible.
So how do we
If you
fight that,
think
right?
about kids.
Oh yeah, trust me, I got that problem. My 6-year-old.
You may have
Holy
seen.
cow!
Do you remember the time where they were actually more naturally in tune? I don't know if this has been completely lost in kids, but we've often said that kids show us what is eating kind of intuitively, if you want to call it.
Right.
Intuitive eating is something that is being promoted more in terms of kind of trusting your internal signals, learning how to reconnect with your hunger and fullness, and that children are often some of our best teachers where, I actually don't have kids myself, but
That's
I have
okay.
heard that, parents experience trying to force an active 2-year-old to sit down and eat is I don't know. What about, did you experience intuitive eating in your kids
When I was
at all?
younger, myself or my boy, because I guess myself, we're all, over the age of 40 at this table, and we probably didn't have as many opportunities, right? Or exposures, that's a good way to describe it, as kids do now, right? And now I don't even think my son knows, he doesn't have that intuitive anymore. He lost it because there's that constant availability of just junk.
Well, I have kids, and you look too as when you go grocery shopping, again, you lack time, so you're looking for what's been huge is the quote-unquote meal replacement. When I was a kid, we sat down at
like
a table.
a Lunchable?
Yeah, we sat down at
Had
a table
real food?
and had
Yeah,
real
exactly.
food, had real conversation. People cooked over the stove, and it came and it was steaming. And your plate was hot, and now it's when you get around to it, or again, it's the stopping because we're headed here. We need to go to the band practice and then over to the soccer game. On the way, we're going to grab a chili cheese corn dog, and then we're going to come over here. And then you did really good, so I'm going to go get you a soft serve. And,
Oh yeah, because dad wants a soft serve.
Dad wants a soft serve,
right?
So that's kind of what
Yeah.
it's evolved. So I think there's two parts of that. Is that meal replacement? They got the little squeezable yogurts.
Oh yeah,
and they're
that's
not
big
yogurt
now. No,
Yeah.
but it is. It's something that kids look at. It's on the go. I can hurry and take it with me on my way on the school bus or whatever.
Yeah, and parents are, I'm not saying you're being suckered, but you don't know. You look at it and you're like, oh, it's yogurt, it's going to be healthy. And really, it's probably not.
Yeah,
Right?
there's a lot of mixed messages, but you mentioned something that I think really makes sense is that it is pretty hard to go wrong if you're cooking and preparing your food at home.
Yeah.
And that is I think that's one of the biggest strategies, even as athletes and busy people, is that we tend to get pretty busy. Sometimes we rely on convenience foods like bars, and that's
Right.
not a bad thing, but not as your
Staple, everyday
staple,
go-to.
everyday diet. If you're cooking, preparing your foods, it's a lot more likely that you're eating real food.
Yeah. Now,
And,
so Eric does a really good job of this. Usually on Sunday, he'll fix food for the week, right? So he usually tells me either Saturday or Sunday. He's like,
do.
dude, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, you're going to be cooking all day. And he does a really good job of it. And what that does is, it sets him up to be successful during the week.
Yeah.
He's less likely to go ahead and grab that thing that is going to maybe throw him off. And it allows his family to have good choices as well.
Right.
And then it becomes that quick on-the-go thing because you can just reach in the refrigerator. You can grab a couple, pieces of brisket and some roasted Brussels sprouts.
Oh, you're dialing it in. You
Oh,
listen.
man.
Love those Brussels sprouts.
Love those. Those are like
Balsamic
just
and-
crushing those right now.
Right-
Love them.
Right now at our house, it's big as Brussels sprouts, spaghetti squash, and green beans.
Yep, that's what we have in our refrigerator as well. It's
Well,
so
that's
yummy.
pretty cool because right now some of the seasonal items are coming in, like asparagus, and I think
Yep.
Brussels sprouts are also kind of coming in. So even in here in early winter, we can sometimes get these types of veggies. And eating in season is a good strategy. That does
Yeah.
give you more nutrients. Some of these foods are really fresher, higher nutrients.
Right.
So it sounds like you're on the right. That's huge.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome that,
I
that
can
he
stick
does
with
that.
it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have the realities of life, You do pretty good for maybe 2 weeks, and then you get a week where you're
Right.
stressed out, right?
Yeah.
It's like in anything where even training cycles where you can't train at peak training all year round. And I think sometimes we get into that habit even with nutrition, that when we make a change in our eating, that we have to do it to the level that it's going to be
Sustainable. and it's not.
100% for the rest of our life.
And I've noticed in the eating side of things,
Yeah.
the spiraling is easier. Like when you eat healthy, like I've done this, 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, really just dialed it in, feel great. My clothes are a little looser, and then you grab that one thing, and it's just like it kicks your brain.
Floodgates are open.
It really
right?
does.
It does, right?
It
It's got
does.
this like deep primordial thing in your brain that says, "Give me more of that," right?
More sugar.
Yeah, more salt, more just whatever.
And even
then
though you feel horrible,
it's
you still
hard
do it.
to control that though, because the industry knows that they're no dummies. They've done plenty of research on this. That's where a lot of the profits goes into the research. How can we get more people hooked on this stuff, right? So
One thing I've found really interesting is this concept of mindful eating. I don't know if you've heard. Mindfulness is kind of trendy right now.
It is.
And a lot of people talking about meditation, whatever. But mindful eating is really interesting. This is one of my journeys, is I've found that when you do pay attention more to your eating, when you literally eat without so much distraction, because a lot of things we are doing right now is we're busy when we're eating in our car, we're
working at the computer.
eating at the computer,
Yep.
and we're not truly getting the information of how kind of satisfying that
Right.
food is. So it leaves us kind of unsatisfied in a way. And it's not as enjoyable. So one thing I've noticed with mindful eating is, and I'm just practicing myself, is even just eating, my thing of oatmeal, but it's like really tasting it, allowing it to be kind of the flavor, the texture, the experience, or when you go out to eat,
Right.
or with a family friend and you're eating, and it's like this, all of the experience of being mindful of that actually helps you really feel more satisfied and actually makes healthy eating, something that you want. It's an experience that it's not just eating good food that in your head is right, but that experience of truly being nourished.
Right.
I guess.
I mean, that
so.
makes a lot of sense because
Yeah.
I look at that and I have this conversation with my kids and a lot of people. Some of the best meals growing up were going to grandma's when she cooked on Sundays. And again, the food was great. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong. Amazing food, but it was that kind of what you were doing in the moment.
Yes.
There was no TVs, no radios on. There was no
No
phones
iPad,
ringing, no
no
iPads.
Xbox.
It was listening to grandma and grandpa's stories. You talk about the week, you
That's
talk
right.
about the farm.
That's right.
And I mean, that's
connection.
Interesting you say that, because it is. It's like I can still remember the food we ate, you know, and that's been a long time, but I can't tell you what I had last week while I was working on my computer at lunch. You know what I mean? So that makes a lot of sense.
No, that's a good point. I'm trying to think what I had yesterday at lunch, because I grabbed it, I fixed it, and I sat in front of the computer.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what I had.
That is so interesting. And I bet Grandma was cooking some pretty good home-cooked foods right
you
there.
know it, right?
Pot roast, real mashed potatoes.
Real
some
mashed potatoes?
Yeah, right.
gosh.
She actually mashed them
Right.
and out of the
With
garden
hand.
from
Oh,
the
right.
backyard.
From the garden.
Yeah, and
She
so
pulled a Lucy and got her feet in there and just kind of mashed them
probably
around.
did.
Right?
I mean, it was amazing. And again, I was little, so it wasn't like I was always looking forward to this healthy food.
Right.
But, you know, of course, I always went home with icebox fudge, but that's a different story. too, so
That's right. Grandma,
she took
all
care
about
of,
moderation.
She took care of me.
Yep. So I think that, you know, we can probably take a little break right now, and then we'll come back, and maybe we'll switch gears and maybe talk a little about actual running,
That sounds great.
right?
Wow, that'll be nice. So, all right, we'll be right back with Suzanne Lewis.
This is Luke Nelson. You're listening to Trail Manners Podcast, bringing you the dirt and the vert.
All right, welcome back to the Trail Manners Podcast. Again, we are at the Park City Running Company. It's a pretty sweet store. If you haven't had a chance to visit Park City Running Company, please do. They have everything that you're going to need for the seasoned runner, and especially for trail runners, because, you know, Candace, he's the trail runner guy, and he likes to support us trail runners. So again, stop by. They are, it looks like they're in Jeremy Ranch. Is that where we're at?
Yep, right in Jeremy Ranch.
Yeah, behind the, well, it's not an Albertsons. What do they call those now? Fresh Markets.
Fresh Markets.
So it's behind the Fresh Market right off the freeway. So stop by, support these guys. They're awesome. So again, we are talking with runner extraordinaire and nutritionist Suzanne Lewis. So Suzanne, thank you again for coming up here and talking to us. You just laid down some great information about nutrition. And during the break, we probably had a really good conversation that we probably should have recorded about being really mindful about what you eat.
Yeah, that was a great conversation.
This always happens. You know, we take a break, and whoever the guest is, we get talking, and the content that comes out of that is like gold. So we're going to try to bring you on the show again.
I'd love to come back.
Well, we appreciate that, because there's so much more we can talk about. And we don't want to make this show too long. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about you as the runner, right? So here's where you get to be uncomfortable,
Okay.
right? So how did you get into trail running?
It was a natural evolution. I will admit, I have been a runner since I came out randomly for the high school track team. I was like, 14. And running, I just fell in love with it,
Did ya?
honestly. I was one of those people that I just loved running.
So did you run track and cross country?
I did. I did cross country track, and then I did a little bit of running in college, and I got really burnt out
Did ya?
on the structure and the.
It's a lot of miles, right?
It was a lot, and I just had lost the love of running,
Right.
and so I took a little break. But when I moved here to Utah, honestly. That really changed. I had come from the East Coast, and I didn't have access to trails, but I get now, like, there's ultra runners everywhere. So,
Right. So when did you move to Utah?
I moved here just after the Olympics in 2003.
Right.
Just to go to study nutrition at the U.
Okay.
And then I met some people up here. It's really about community for me. I met some runners that did these trail runs, did these crazy, ultra runs eventually. But I just started with just learning how to run on trail, which is different than road.
So when you first started, were you like super worried about pace? Like, oh my gosh, I'm going so slow for, this course of 5 miles. Or did you just kind of get into it and you're like, this is so awesome, I don't care?
Yeah, luckily what happened for me was I refound the love of running after
That's so cool.
having been, kind of burnt out. I really just enjoyed being on our trails and enjoyed the people. And so
the people are the best, right?
Really, we have an amazing community, and I think I hear a lot of people say that trail running and trail runners are just some of the best people.
Yeah, we say it just about every week on the show.
Pretty much every week on the show.
Yeah, and
yeah,
people
just like
are
you
like,
guys, pretty good people.
Well, thanks. That's awfully nice of you to say that for meeting us for the first time.
Yeah.
So you move the Salt Lake.
Yeah.
You reconnect with that love of running, but it's on trails now.
Yeah.
So you're running consistently, hopefully, at that point, right?
Yeah.
Getting back out there. So how did you get into racing then?
Yeah. It was just a natural evolution because racing is a great opportunity to see places, and
it is.
that's why I love racing. Is that you get to go to the most amazing, beautiful places in a race where you get out there, you have support for that, and you're able to just kind of enjoy the experience of being out without being worried about all of the necessities at times. So I've just enjoyed. I've raced a lot in Utah, but I've kind of picked certain races outside of Utah to explore.
So what's your favorite race here in Utah?
In Utah?
Putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
I know. I don't want to do any damage. I have really loved all of.
No.
But
No.
here-
Come on now.
okay,
You gotta
here's what I'll
give
say
us your
is-
favorite.
I really like the grassroots runs, and I don't know that it's an official race, but the Bow Show. I'll give a shout out to the Bow Show.
The Bow Show Marathon. Yeah. That's good stuff, right?
It is.
Um,
Never
Okay.
heard of it. Wink,
No,
wink.
yeah, exactly.
I
Never
wouldn't
heard it. The
call
race
that-
that shall not be named that happens in April.
That's right. It's not an official race,
Right.
but I think ultimately the most dear to the heart is I guess the Wasatch 100.
Okay.
I could also say I have a love-hate relationship with the Wasatch.
I think a lot of people do. Right. Well, was that your first 100?
Yes, it was actually.
Nice. Me too.
Man,
Nice.
we just bite it off right from
Yeah.
the get-go,
Right,
right?
just get right to it.
That's awesome. So then let's extend that. So you're traveling to go to the runs. What's your favorite out-of-state race
Oh.
so far?
So far, I've run a couple of races that are smaller in New Mexico, actually. I've kind of taken a liking to northern New Mexico. There is a really nice race down there that you've probably run. It's in Los Alamos, and it's the name of it is
Is it Hemes?
yeah,
Hemes.
Hemes. Yeah, Hemes.
I heard that's super tough.
It's actually a very hard course, definitely a lot of good climbing, but it truly is an amazing, beautiful landscape. So, and good people that run that race. So I think
a lot
Hemes.
of hard rockers go down to that course.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Right?
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, is that
couldn't
because
for-
you
I
being
should
the
have
hard
forgot that
right.
hard. Okay, I
You're a hard rock
kind of
veteran
forgot
now,
that hard
right?
rock was in the mix here.
Yeah, you're a hard rock veteran.
How do you
now,
forget that?
right?
The pain, the
You're
pain.
totally downplaying that.
I blocked it out. No,
Yeah.
I actually Hard Rock is truly one of the most amazing races. So I'm so grateful I got to finish that.
Well,
race.
you've done that twice, not just
Twice,
once.
not
That's-
once.
Yeah,
So your
I got
short-term and long-term
lucky.
memory are severely affected, right?
That's true.
Now, have you done it both directions?
I have. I luckily got in 2 times back-to-back years. But
Amazing.
we had gone out. I had fallen in love with Hard Rock for a number of years, and we kept going back to pace others, to volunteer. So to actually get into the race was truly an honor. And we have a lot of veteran hard rockers around here.
Yeah, we do.
Rock Horton and other
That Carl guy. He's
Carl
pretty
Meltzer,
fast.
and so you
Yep.
kind of get to see these people and think, wow, that's I'd love to get to join them out there in those beautiful mountains.
So the first time you did hard rock, were
Yeah.
you just what was your experience like? What was your feelings like going into it?
Yeah.
Were you terrified?
I say I was not, and that's probably ignorance is bliss. I had an idea that it just was going to be beautiful, and I was just so excited that I actually got in. So I was
That's cool. So you
pretty
just enjoyed
excited.
the moment.
I did my grandeur laps. I tried to, I did start to use my poles,
Yep.
and I learned the things from those veterans, the people
Yeah.
that teach us where I've learned everything is mostly our community here, and so I tried to learn from the people that have done it. I was pretty excited about it, though.
And that's one thing we've talked about before is the people, the veterans. A lot of time these veterans aren't just, I've done this
Right.
once or twice, or people, I've won that. I've taken second. I've run it 10 times.
Right.
So there are people
These
that,
humble people.
humble people, but I don't know, I guess in a way you kind of look at them as like, wow, look what they've done. But yet when you talk to them, they are right there to support
Yeah.
and to give you whatever information they can help you with.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's so unique about the trail community.
It is. It's way cool because, I mean, we get to interview some cool people on this show, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then you get to talking to them, you're like, yeah, you're like the super rock star runner, but then you're like, oh, you're like the coolest person too.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that.
Right.
And even when you talk to them, so if you, I've run that race a few times, then you find out they've won it 3.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Like talking about like Luke Nelson, he's like super fast,
Yeah.
right? And he's the nicest guy. Same with like Ty Draney. They're two of the best guys, right?
But they're also just, they
Crazy
crush
fast.
things. Yeah, they do a lot of good stuff. So I think that's neat that you could
Yeah.
go to those people and get some information and take it back.
Absolutely.
Because you know what, at Turn, that's where you're at now.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've done it twice. You've done both directions. So now people can come to you and say, hey, what do you think? So
What
it almost
don't
like
do.
comes,
Yeah.
it comes full circle, though.
It does.
I think you guys are so right in that I don't think we realize the impact we can have on others, and that we have you never know who's running next to you. You never know what their life has been.
Yeah.
A lot of times lately I hear people talking about they're running for someone that has cancer or something.
Right.
And you know what? I think we come together and we impact each other just by running next to each other and just by offering that kind word like, hey, nice job. You're looking good. Keep going. I think we don't realize how much we have to offer. And I really appreciate the quote unquote veterans that have still maintained this willingness to give after all that they've done in their lives.
So do you
'cause
think that? Go ahead.
pioneer it. Well, I mean, they pioneer it to some
Right.
degree, and now you look
We're-
at some of the races that they've pioneered, or now they're huge. So
Right.
even they have a hard time getting in. But they don't
Yeah.
look at it as like, I'm not going to help you. You're taking my
Right.
spot. It's oh yeah. So this is what you need to do. So I think it just kind of goes back. And, in a real quick story, I was hiking one day with my wife. And everybody on the trail was like, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?" And she's like, "Is it always like this?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
I said,
Yeah.
"Now go to the grocery store, right,
Yeah.
and see how many people tell you hi. Go to the mall, see how many people that are on the trail and outdoors. It's just a different mindset."
So do you think the outdoors does that to people, or is it that type of person is drawn to the outdoors, or maybe a little bit of both, right?
I think it's a little bit of both.
I do too. I think about what you learn in your times when you're out there, sometimes by yourself, is on the trail. I mean, the thoughts you have, the things that you become aware of and maybe mindful of.
Yep.
It's maybe a little bit of that mindfulness thing
Mm-hmm.
of really what's important in life and the appreciation of what we can do.
Well, because you're out there and you're really, no matter what you're doing, it's simplest form.
Right.
It's just you with a pair of shoes, and you got all the tech gear and everything
Right.
else, but it's the simplest form of doing something.
It is.
Right, and it comes to the core of the exercise. But
Mm-hmm.
as we talked at break, what you brought up is kind of that whole mindful thing when you're on the trail. You can be out there for 2-3 hours and come back and I don't even remember what I thought about, or I
Right.
wasn't gone that long, because you get caught up in that moment. And you
so
mentioned
here.
being in the flow. And I think that's part person, part environment. It's a good combination of both.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head for sure.
It's kind of what your trail manners is. I'm assuming there's something about that with the name. I don't know if
That's
you've
his
talked
last
about
name,
that.
right? Manning is his last
Oh.
name.
Yeah, my nickname in college when I played at Weber State, my coach was
Nice.
from South Africa, and all the
Oh.
people on our team, you could end their name in E, like Ryrie, Russie, Scotty, Mikey, and they get to me, I got nothing. So he would just go, and manners. And it just kind of stuck. So it just kind of
love
stuck
it.
there. So
Yeah.
it came by default. But yeah, it kind of stuck. But it's a kind of a double entendre there.
I guess so, yeah. So you've been really successful, right? I think you have. I mean, you've done a lot of big races. You've placed well. And I think that's another thing that maybe a lot of people don't know about. You really have placed well in these races. And you probably don't want to talk about, and that's fine. But are you at the point now where you're like, I'm looking for something new,
Different.
something bigger, something maybe in a different country? So what are the kind of things that keep you motivated?
Yeah. For me, I know everyone has their own motivation for running, and I think my running has been a journey. When I was a little younger, I used to really want to be, real competitive, and I was never, the top in any race, but I did okay, and I certainly felt like I had performed well. I think now I do find that my satisfaction is truly coming from that experience of the race and what it teaches me about myself. And so I have stop thinking as much about performance and more about what I'm going to learn or maybe who I may meet on this trail. But I still have my goals. I did actually get into Western States this year.
Did you?
So
Holy cow.
That's
Yeah.
that's
That's
snuck
a
by
first.
me.
I've been flying for 7 years, and so I got in this year, and it
Good
was
for
like,
you.
oh, okay, and that's just, I think for me, that's like getting to be a part of this legacy, this history of
Yeah.
our sport, and so I'm pretty excited, and that's not like I do like a hard rock style race, so
Right.
this is more running and it's more maybe a little warmer. I don't know, we'll see, but I think that's the challenge, and that's what I think keeps me engaged is just that what I'm going to learn in the process of getting to there and being in that beautiful place with these community of ours.
That's pretty cool
Yeah.
that you got in.
That's awesome because our next show is with Canis, and he
Yeah.
got in.
And he got in.
So
yep.
this is like
Oh, good.
This is a big day for the show.
Yeah, it is.
We will
I'm
have
getting emotional.
there's a number of Utahns, so I think we have a good Utah
Contingent heading out.
The
So-
Jurniks and
So what are you doing to prepare for what is Western? So is that your? I mean,
Yeah.
is
Is that
it
like
your
your A
focus?
race
A
for the
race.
year?
This is my
I
year.
guess so, yeah. And I was a little slow to start with our little snowy season. Yeah, right now I'm building up base. So that is one of my strategies, I guess I've maybe learned is because I really have had, I cross my fingers, I've had almost no injury in my however long years of
That's
running.
fantastic.
That's great.
So one of my strategies is I really take it slow when I'm building up. So I'm really in the base phase, and I'm just getting out to try to do those 2 to 3, working up to the 3-hour run. I'm not even running that yet, and I'm probably a little off the timeline, but I'm starting to run more longer back-to-backs, and
Okay.
that's kind of the strategy I'm working on right now.
So what's
And then I got to start running for Western States.
so what's your typical in your mind because you've done it before? What's
Yeah.
a typical? How long does it take to build the base you get comfortable with before you
Right.
pick it up?
I feel like solid 2 months is probably where I start to feel like, I think one of the dangers is to start feeling kind of good and then start to quick move too fast with your training, and then you get an injury that kind of sidelines you or kind of limits your training for that next few months. So I really think giving it 2 months. So I'm probably about a month in. I do have a race coming up in Moab. I'm going to go check out the Behind the Rocks
Oh, yeah.
Ultra. Have you ever done that?
No, I
I
haven't.
have not.
Just curious, get down there to the desert, but it looks like fairly low elevation, so probably a lot of running, which will be good for me in
Right.
the Western.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done the base building. I'm on year 7.
Yeah.
I'm still working
Okay,
on the
yeah.
base. So that might be a little
No,
longer
really.
time frame than yours.
When I first started, I took 2 years, I think, to build up to a 50-miler. I think that's what it was for me, is just for those of us that are getting started, like, take your time, enjoy it, get used to being out there for those long hours, and you'll get there.
So do you have anything else after Behind the Rocks before Western? Do you have any other race to prep
Yeah,
you?
I am planning on the Hemes again.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
That'll be a
'cause
good
we-
one because you'll get the heat.
Get
You,
the,
you know the course.
Yeah, exactly.
Go down and have some fun.
I don't tend to go to the ones a lot over and over. I like the novelty, but we do have family. My boyfriend has family in Los Alamos, so we'll get to stay with them, get some home cooked food.
There you go.
Right on.
Yeah.
The mindful
awesome.
eating.
Yeah. So after you have fun down at Western,
Yeah.
you got anything later in the summer or the fall planned?
I am on the waiting list for the Bear 100.
Are
so
you?
I will.
Where
try
where
to
you
go
at in the
back to
list?
that.
You know?
I feel like
Top
I'm number, 50 or something.
my gosh.
Maybe.
Wow.
So I'm probably going to get in, I think, actually.
Yeah. He's been doing a pretty good job of getting people in.
Yeah. A lot of people do get off the waiting list. So yeah, don't be afraid. Get on the waiting list if you're thinking
No, I think
about
the
it.
waiting list is like a couple hundred deep now, something
Jeez.
ridiculous like
That's-
that.
I just can't believe how
Yeah.
quick it filled.
Yeah,
First
all
time
It's
those-
ever.
a beautiful race.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. That's
We-
my
we-
favorite.
We talk about it on the show. I
Yeah.
mean, pretty much every episode, I think
Pretty
the bear
much.
comes up for
Yeah.
one reason or another.
It's because my love of the bear.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
And well, it's a hard rock qualifier, and that's another reason
It's
why.
nice.
It-
We have
it
a couple of those
bloomed.
in our
Right.
state.
And
Yeah.
you don't have to go through the lottery to get in, or you didn't.
Right.
And all the other qualifiers are pretty much full right now.
I don't
I
know if
think
there's
so.
any that are open.
Well, there is, but I'm not going to mention it.
Yeah, there
not allowed
there
to talk
might
about
be
it.
one, but we
I'm
don't
not
wanna-
allowed to talk about that race.
We don't want a gut punch.
I was threatened with violence if I said the name.
and I was the witness.
Yeah.
The name that cannot be spoken.
Yeah, that's right.
That's
I'm not
right.
allowed to talk about it, even though we're talking about it right now.
Yeah,
and I'm going to
so
get a lot of grief over it.
It's always fun though. Getting
But
grief over it.
anyway, so That's awesome. If you get into, if that's a great year, Western States and the Bear.
That's awesome.
That'd be
Well,
amazing.
I'd be pretty psyched. I'm not that one that does multiple big races in a year, so
Yeah.
I really do. I enjoy the training. I try to focus on those ones and then just see how it goes,
Okay.
as you guys
awesome.
know.
So here's a question for you.
Sure.
You're training, you're getting into these races. We're in Park City Running Company. The wall I'm looking at is full of nutrition companies. There's a rack full of nutrition companies. You're a veteran of the tough races, and you've got some
Yeah.
tough ones coming. What's your race strategy? What's your race plan for nutrition? What do you use? What what
products
works?
and things do I
what
use?
works for you? Because I mean that's a big discussion.
That is a good question. As I've over the time, I've gotten, I really was heavily relying on gels and things, and I have shifted I've gotten used to training on more quote unquote real foods, and so I do eat things like these Lara bars. I don't know if you ever heard of that, fruit
Yeah.
and nut bars,
Yeah.
things like that, and I will eat at aid stations. Since I'm not as much concerned about that peak performance, as I mentioned, I tend to want to get the nutrition, keep going, keep my mental and positive. That's for me been one of the priorities. So I do carry gels. I do like V Fuel. If brand names are,
No, that's fine.
I've found that one to be really easy to take down. I know they do put a little bit of, I think, fat in that, and it helps to keep it kind of, a little bit gut friendly there. And so I mix gels. I also do the electrolyte beverages.
So which one do you use?
And I do use Scratch lately.
Okay.
I've really,
Scratch Labs?
Yeah.
I see
like
them.
that.
I see them on the wall.
It's I don't know what it is. It just is not that sweet, and it
Right,
has
and there's something about the texture of it
it's
too,
very-
right? It goes down really easy.
Yeah, it does go down easy. So I will use that, and then in between that, I just tend to really try to. I'll eat like things like peanut butter and jelly, and
So will
just
you
try
eat
to-
whatever's at the aid station?
Not everything. I do tend to look for what I feel what is looking good actually, and I
At the
will try
time.
to get salts at
Right.
the aid station. I will
So
try to
potato
eat
chips,
some chips, some
chips.
pretzels, and things like that. Maybe the potatoes, and then at night or long races. Even at Hard Rock, it was like getting, if it's cool, and getting warmer foods like the broth. I'm sure
Right,
you've
noodles.
had
Soup. Yeah.
the healing broth.
Oh,
So I tend to really try to get a variety of fuel sources, but gels and goos are an important part.
So do you
of my
start with
training.
gels and goos and find yourself transitioning? Now we're
Yeah.
talking specifically to the 100-mile distance
Right.
or like a 50. You transition away from those.
Yeah, I think would be true to state that. One of the things I do try to do is keep eating early and often. You probably heard that. You really don't want to wait too long and get into a deficit, especially when you've got a Hard Rock ahead of you. So you do really what you can get those gels, get the real food if you can take a little bit and keep that going in the early part of the day, because as you get a little later into the night, you're not going to maybe feel like eating as much. So I try to prevent by eating when I'm feeling
Ahead.
fairly good
Before you
and
get
then
behind.
try to keep up with it.
So do you take the same gels and drinks on your training runs? Do you train with the same
Right.
things?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. I am a proponent of that, of training with what you are going to, and even the conditions, what your conditions might be for the race. So if you're
Right.
going to the Western States or you're going to a hotter race, trying to train in some hot conditions, get used to drinking, get your stomach used to filling, getting
Queasy
that.
and hot.
Exactly. You don't want to show up to the first time and be surprised by that. So yeah, I use the same things in my training, and then I usually just be ready to, I think one other thing I just say is be ready to change what you need in the race.
So be
because-
flexible.
Be flexible.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
If you
that's-
can only eat one type of food, you might find that so mixing it up and getting used to having a little variety.
Well, you see that even more and more when people do a race on the Q&A, and the race directors do a good job of it, but they always say, what kind of gels and electrolytes are your aid stations? Because that helps prepare, okay, you're using...
It's true.
You're using, say it's, I'm looking at the wall, so say you're using Tailwind, and you're using it at your races, maybe I won't bring my stuff.
Right.
But if it's using Tailwind, but you're used to, there's
Just
another
what
thing
you're
on the
used
wall,
to.
there's goo and heat or whatever, you're like, I better bring my own.
Yeah.
So it is a matter of training. We've heard that a lot on the show. Train
Yeah.
with what you're going to use in a race, and then you will
Train
know, and your
specifically.
body will know what to do with it.
react to
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, it's going to know, hey, this is what I need to do.
It's going to be less likely to go haywire on you.
That's right.
And
Never
rebel.
do. It's not. I wore gaiters for the first time ever at the Wasatch, one of my first Wasatch, and I don't know what happened, but I had like complete meltdown. Like there was blisters and like these gaiters. I had never worn them before, so I think it really does pay to just not introduce too many new things on those race days.
Yeah.
Joel has a good thing. He paced me at Wasatch a couple years ago, and I was at Brighton, and I didn't want to leave, and they made me.
Yeah, that's right.
That happens.
We ran into Mark Coleman the other day.
Yeah, we ran up on the trail, and he got me out of the aid station. But I have a pair of Black Diamond Z poles.
Oh, yeah.
They're super sexy. I love them. I like just grabbing them, but I've never used them.
Okay.
I've never used them on a trail. I've never walked with them on a trail. We left Brighton, and Joel hands me my Z poles.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. And I grab them, and we start going up the climb. I didn't know how to use them.
He
I'm
didn't
like
know how to use them.
smacking
He'd never
rocks.
used them before.
I've never used them, so I'm like, what do I do? How do I, it was frustrating.
Yeah. Next
And
thing
so-
I know, he's like collapsing him and tossing him at me, throwing a fit.
I was like,
I'm
"This.
all
Why are we
right,
doing
I'll
this?" It did.
carry
It
on.
took my mind off the pain, but it was.
did.
I used it on the day. I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
Right. So it's even the same thing because you mentioned
Yep.
it earlier. You started using poles.
Yep.
Practice or train
Yeah.
with what you're going to use, whether it's a vest, a waist belt,
Yeah.
poles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what it is. You gotta give it a shot.
Yeah. And if you're going to try something new, don't try it at a 100-miler.
Yeah.
Try it at a short distance.
Where you can get away with a little more give. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have more latitude to screw up.
Or have it disposable so you can just leave it.
Yeah, exactly. You just leave the evidence.
With a
didn't
note
need
on
that.
it.
Yeah.
With a note on it. Whoever wants this
Someone
takes it. I'm free.
Find this
Yeah,
good
exactly.
home needed.
That's right. So, what do you do to prepare for a race? As far as like, what are you going to eat the night before, and what are you going to eat the day of? And let's be specific. What are you going to do for a 100-mile distance?
Okay. For me, I have found that I have a pretty good stomach, and so, but I do tend to eat more carbohydrate foods. So I usually would have something like the pasta, or, get some protein. Maybe get. I eat a little bit of fish, and so I am one thing I just know is that eating a good meal is important. So I'm not trying to
Like size-wise good or
Yeah,
the
and
quality?
both. I feel I don't eat like a high-fat meal. That's probably a little too heavy. I tend to try to avoid maybe really any kind of fried foods and things. I just really try to get the quality carbs with, I do eat some vegetables and protein, but I think for me, the pre-race meal is also important, and I usually do get up early to get in those
So
calories.
you say pre-race, you mean that morning of?
Yeah, the
morning
morning
of.
of,
Okay.
even if, getting up a little early, making sure that I have, I do pretty large amount of oatmeal, get the fruit, get, even some orange juice. I just try to
Oh.
get,
Really?
You go
yeah,
after it.
I go
Orange
and
juice?
I get some.
You do have a solid gut.
I do have a gut. So I think that's been a benefit for me. So I don't know that what I do would work for everyone.
Right, so everybody's got to figure it
Yeah.
out. But it's always good to hear what the
Right.
veterans do, and we consider you a veteran because you've been around for a while and you've been successful. What helps you,
Right.
right? And it's going to
Yeah.
maybe help somebody else.
Solid breakfast is really, I think, a key when you're getting ready to run, especially all day.
Right.
Well, so I'm going to rewind a little bit because I've
All
heard
right.
mixing, and again, it depends on the person. So you're pre-race, not the morning of, but is
The
it?
night before.
But is it? Because I've heard people say it's not the meal you eat the night before; it's the meal you eat
The night
two
to
nights
before,
before. So
night
if your race
before.
is on a Saturday morning,
Right.
Thursday night's meal
Yeah.
is the key. Now, what do you feel about that?
I think depending on what your overall, we talked about this idea of what your day-to-day pattern is. So for me, I do tend to eat a little on the higher carbohydrate side. I'll be honest, like I'm almost vegetarian, so I'm eating like a lot of these carbs, like
But they're good
beans
carbs,
and
right?
Good carbs.
They're good carbs.
Whole
So,
grains.
Yeah, we need to.
So my diet is
yeah.
already a little higher in carbs, so
Right.
I don't need that. I don't feel that for me that I need to load on carbohydrates even like a couple nights before a race because I'm already kind of getting those carbs. So
Right.
for me, I tend to just feel that while it might be a good idea for some people that are lower on the carb scale to get some additional carbs potentially, even a couple days before the race, just to refuel and stock up your muscle glycogen. I don't know. I tend to find that it's your day-to-day pattern what is really going to make the difference. And so I don't feel that I have to do something extremely different even a couple days before a
So
race.
it's kind of, for you, it's more of
For
just your
me.
normal
But
routine.
I have other friends who are like, their stomach gets real nervous and kind of bad, and their GI is like not that great. So they go on a somewhat liquid diet a couple days. I know, even a day before, which they're drinking like soups and they're getting a lot of maybe smoothies and things. They try to keep their calories up but they want their GI to be kind of,
fresh and
fresh.
empty almost.
Yeah,
really.
pretty much, right?
Yeah, it's
and they
kind of-
found that works for them. So it is very individual.
So finding what works for you is kind of that moral, right? We've talked about this over and over
Seems
again,
nebulous,
right?
but
yeah, you got to find what works for you.
Well, and there's so many options out there,
There
like
are.
we said, with not
Right.
just the nutrition that we can see here in the store, but the food you eat at home.
Right.
And again, Joel's mentioned it. It's mentioned before. Test it. You know,
test
even
it.
not just for a race, but maybe you've got a long training run on a weekend.
Right.
You know, try it that way. Eat a
Yeah.
good meal Friday night. Get up, try something in the morning. You know, whatever the time frame is, and try it to see, because that's the best place to try it. If your training run suffers, that's better than your race suffers,
Yeah.
because the race is what you're looking at, right?
And I
Right.
think that we've been saying maybe don't change something in a way, because you're coming up to the race. Don't change anything. Just
Yeah.
eat normal, right? Really, that's what you should maybe ultimately think about.
Yeah, I've
Because
seen some.
if you change it and you eat that big fat pasta
Oh,
dinner,
man, I've
you're going to be in trouble.
Right. It might not sit well.
Yeah,
No.
I've seen some people say they're carb loading, and I
Yeah.
thought that's more than carb loading.
Yeah,
That's the Last
exactly.
Supper, bro. You're in deep.
Yeah, you're going to be
hating it.
hitting
Yeah.
the bushes a lot.
And that's a good point about like people traveling for races and
Yeah.
stuff. You kind of have to be aware that you're introducing something new into your environment just from
Right.
your food environment. You're maybe eating at the race dinner, or you're going to some new restaurants and things.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't eat the race dinner. That's
Those usually don't work out.
they
so
don't
well.
work out well.
Yeah.
Just keep
Sooner or later
get your
that-
plan
yeah.
and stick to it.
Exactly. I had that problem a couple of years ago. We went down to do the Zion 50, and we went to, I can't remember the name of it. It's like this awesome little restaurant. It looks like it's in a gas station. And they had a green chili burger.
Oh, that sounds like it's gonna
And
be trouble right there.
For
just
some
in the
reason, I was
name.
like, that is going to taste so good right now. And it did. But the next day, put the hurting on me so bad.
Well, we did it at El Vaquero Loco.
Oh, my gosh,
we
that's
went
right.
to race check in, and Joel and we were like, "Oh, let's go to this Mexican restaurant we've
Oh.
never tried before." That
Ooh.
yeah, that hurt for like 3 days. Heck with a race, man.
That's right. I remember I was running. I was
Running.
I was running for the woods because after the first aid station, I was like, yeah, this ain't working. So I run over to the woods and I can see Eric and like Emily Pontius and I think Sean Nalder was with us.
Yeah.
I see all of them go cruising down the trail, and I catch up to them and they're like, "Where were you?" And I'm like, well, "Where do you think I was?"
We leapfrogged the
Yeah.
whole day because we both had the same problem.
Same Mexican restaurant problem.
And that's a perfect example. When you go to a race, not just because you come to Salt Lake City, you go to a big city. There's lots of options.
Yeah.
You go to these
Red
smaller
Iguana.
towns. Yeah, you go to Red Iguana. You go to these
right.
small towns like in Afton, Wyoming, like a Silverton, Colorado. There's not a lot of options.
No, that's
And
when you're bringing your own stuff.
That's when you
right?
need to pay attention
Yeah.
if you can and bring your own food.
It
You know,
makes sense.
After the race, kill it. Do
Oh,
what you need to
crush
do.
it.
Yeah.
Just reduce the number of factors you need to
Yep.
worry about.
worry
Yep.
about.
I think that's a good idea. That's why I started doing it. Is like, so when I went and did Zion last year, I took all my food for the night before because at Matt Gunn's races you get 2 meal tickets,
Yeah.
and you see people crushing those pizzas the night
Wood-
before the race.
Wood fire pizzas.
Oh my gosh, and they're so good, and you're just like, that's nothing but trouble coming your way in about 12 hours, right? So I bring my food now for the night before and the morning of. You know,
yeah.
I'll hard boil some eggs and a couple of pieces of bacon, and I'm good to go the morning of, right? I mean, that's even more than I do for training. Training runs, I don't eat anything before my training runs.
Yeah, I don't either.
You know, so I don't want to
Coffee.
deviate too much from that.
Yeah, stick with what.
Yeah, the night before it's like a little bit of chicken, maybe a little salad, and I'm good. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna go to one of Matt Gunn's races, know that you're gonna get 2 tickets.
Save them for after the
Save 'em
race.
for
Enjoy
after
that
the race.
pizza after.
Oh yeah,
because it's so good.
good.
It is good. I've
Especially
been
with your
there.
favorite beverage.
Yes, that's right. And
Because you're already enjoying it then.
yeah, just try to get done early with the race, so that way the human soup that is the hot tub is not too funky. All right, just remember that.
Or just not do it. Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
a whole nother topic right there.
It is, because you got all those stinky,
Don't
dirty
introduce
runners.
the.
Yeah. I've seen people in the hot tub with pizza and beer, and it's just this cycle of stinky runners doing the same thing over and over again.
It's a petri dish.
It is. And what's awesome, too, is because right next to it, you've got the shower that he's got set up. And then right next to that is a bathroom. So you have this perfect line of just accidents waiting to happen,
Yeah,
right?
but his bathrooms are pretty sweet because they're like hamster cages.
Yeah, they are.
You throw pine dust on there.
That's right.
or
They're
shavings.
natural.
Yeah, they are all
They're
natural.
awesome. They're awesome,
You're going to get
though.
naturally.
They're
It's like
awesome.
being in the woods.
It's going to be like this natural flow of E. coli, too. But it's awesome. So I think that we're kind of maybe at the point where we can start wrapping the show
Yeah,
up.
we could wrap it up, but we like we said, we definitely want to get you back on
Yeah.
because this topic me and Joel talked about, this could be a 2-part series, it could be a 2-hour show.
Easily.
And maybe what we could do even is if you have a question,
Please do.
send us your question because when we get her back on, we can ask her these questions.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of information like she mentioned, this is what she does. This is her lifestyle. This is
Right.
what she does. She knows what she's talking about.
So are you taking on new clients right now on the private side?
I do see some private patients.
Do you want some?
clients?
Do you want any?
Right now, my practice is really small, so I tend to work with people that it seems like a good fit where I want to be the right provider and coach for someone.
Right.
So it tends to be very individual. But
Right.
I would be definitely open to people. Love
Well,
to hear from people.
So
that-
if you would like to seek out Suzanne's services, she has a website. We're kind of working on it right now. She and I are. The contact information's on there, and it's revitalnutrition.com, correct?
that's right.
And we'll have that in the show
Yeah,
notes,
we'll
right?
put it in the notes.
So right now there's just this really nice picture on there and her contact information. But we're going to hook her up next week, and we'll get all her
I can't wait.
smoking knowledge up there.
Your websites are
They're getting better.
amazing.
They're getting better. I'm crazy busy with them right now, which is awesome, but I want more.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, folks.
And-
Give me some.
And I think Suzanne just said something great because we've heard it on the show more than once. Is it's the right fit again?
It is.
We had some coaching from Ty Draney and
Right.
others, and it's like he's not going to take on everybody, and maybe he's not the right person even for you.
Right.
And I think Suzanne says the same thing. It's got to be that fit and feeling that comfort of working with somebody. And I think that's
If
to
that
me that's
fit's not
awesome.
there, you'll refer them to somebody else.
That's
right.
right. I
'Cause
have
there's-
a lot of connections and
Yep.
love to get people connected to
Yeah.
where they're going to find what they're looking for. I just love that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what we have coming up next, we got a couple more things to cover. One, we need to go through a quick lightning round with Suzanne.
Yes,
right?
we will.
We're
This
not
is the part I'm scared about.
We're not really prepared for. Maybe we are.
We are, but it's been a while since we've done a lightning round,
Right.
so this is gonna be fun.
So while Eric's getting the lightning round stuff set up, what we got coming up. So this show will air. Is this going to be a Tuesday show, Eric?
Yes, it will.
So this show will air on Tuesday, and then following that up, we will have. I think we're going to do another bonus show, folks, with Canis. So that'll be something to look forward to. And then after that is going to be the Buffalo Run. So again, we are going to be out there with Studio 78. We didn't bring Studio 78 with us today because I'm not quite sure it would have made it up here to Park City.
It's
But-
just got a little bit of a problem. We're getting diagnosed tomorrow.
Yeah, get a bad headache riding around in it right now. But anyways, we're going to take Studio 78 to Antelope Island. Come out there, visit us, drop by. We'll get you on the mics real quick. And then also, Beaverhead.
Yeah, we got that announcement coming up in just a couple days on
Yeah.
Monday. Before this show
Before the
is
show.
launched, we'll know who we got the Beaverhead
Right.
race entry. And there's been a lot of people, and it's been
Yeah.
fun to see.
That's a cool race. I'm looking forward to that. All right, so now we're at the moment of truth, lightning round.
All right.
Now,
Yeah,
you
and
haven't
you've probably
seen any
heard some of
questions.
these. You've heard some of these before, but hopefully we'll throw a curveball at you.
Okay.
Okay, why don't you start off, Eric?
Okay. What is a bucket list race adventure that you still want to do for running?
Oh, I really want to do UTMB,
Oh, there
Ultra
you
Trail
go.
Mont Blanc.
Nice.
Right on.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said it because I would have slaughtered it.
What's your favorite race buckle?
Oh, I was gonna say the Hard Rock, but they don't give hard. I would say my Hard Rock poster.
They don't give a buckle for
They
the
don't
race?
give a buckle.
What?
Yeah, they do, don't they? I've seen some, haven't I?
I don't think so.
Maybe you just didn't
They
get
didn't
yours.
give me one.
Okay, get her buckle because I know
But
I've seen
it's
Hard Rock
it's a
buckle.
poster with a beautiful picture of the San Juan Mountains on
Well,
it.
hell, I can get that anywhere.
Yeah,
Oh no,
no,
these
they're pretty.
are
These are great.
these
I've
are
seen
really special.
these. I've seen these. So let me ask you this: Do you run with an iPod or music at all?
Not a lot.
But you have.
I have.
All
I
right.
do.
What's your guilty pleasure on your iPod?
It's the reggae.
Oh, reggae, huh?
How's that guilty? That's good
I don't know
stuff.
if it's guilty or not.
Come on, you
I don't
gotta give us
I
more
don't
dirt
have,
than
like,
that. We need
okay,
some dirt, girl.
all right.
Give it to us.
What else do I listen to?
Something you're not going to readily admit.
Really
yeah, come
admit
on.
that I
We're
like
your
it?
two new best friends.
That's right. No one's gonna hear this.
No,
What
nobody.
do I like?
No, it's not what you like. It's what you're like.
What I don't want
It's
people
what
to
you
know
exactly.
about?
It's that one.
Yep.
Cyndi Lauper?
Whoa! That's a good
That's
one.
old school.
That's
Girls
juicy.
just want to have fun.
That's juicy. I like
No,
that.
you know who would like that is Turtle Miller.
I think he probably has that on his iPod.
Right next to Shania.
Twain.
All right, so
That wasn't it.
meat or veggies?
Old school. I admit I'm a veggies girl.
Nice.
Love the veggies.
What's your favorite trail running shoe?
Oh,
That's new. We haven't done that yet.
I run in the Pearl Izumi N2s, and those I really enjoy the Pearl Izumi. They have a little bit of width, and they're
Yeah.
just I'm not
that
afraid
upper
of.
is so comfy, right?
Yeah, they really just I don't know,
Seamless
they
upper.
work for me.
Nice
Yeah.
job, Mike Thompson over at Pearl Zoom, giving you a shout out.
That's right. We haven't had anybody talk about Pearl Izumi in a long time. Eric and I, we've had a little sponsorship love from them in the past.
Yeah.
And we like their product a lot.
I may or may not have a pair of N3s on my porch when I get home.
Are you serious?
Oh.
N3.
N3, the newest one that
new
has
one.
just
The-
barely
The
launched.
ones that are out but not out.
Exactly.
Yes.
Sweet.
You got a pair for me too, maybe? Please?
next question.
All right, whose turn is it? Mine or yours?
It's you.
Oh, man. All right. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram?
Ooh, I have all three. I do use Facebook quite a bit, but
You
I've been
do?
getting into Instagram
Atta girl.
lately.
Woo.
I like a picture. You
Yeah,
know, it
right?
says 1,000 words.
That's right.
It's
Or
what-
1,000
what they
hashtags.
say.
Oh,
Hey.
yeah. Don't be the hashtag queen.
I'm not so much into the hashtags.
thank you.
I missed that.
We
boat.
have some friends that are into it, and God bless you, and we love you still, but no, we're over it.
I just look at the pictures.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. What is your favorite/best race performance and why?
Oh, okay. I do think 1 year at Wasatch. I guess it was my second or third year doing the Wasatch. I had a fairly good race for me, and I remember what I did that race was. I think for me the mindset is key. I have found that mile 60 in a 100-miler can be a very dangerous time, and so I did actually have a really great pacer, a good friend, and I just somehow I stayed focused on that end goal. So I think that to me the mental has been always one of the biggest challenges of a good race, and so I think one time at Wasatch I actually raced. And got that mental attitude positive.
Right on. That's awesome. Okay, so here's a question. We just wrapped up our Pacer and Crew series. Pacer or no Pacer?
Yeah, you mentioned that. I'm a fan of Pacers, and I thank you for all of you Pacers in my life. I am looking forward, though, to going out now to try to race without Pacers a little bit more. I think as you get into running, longer you've run, you start to wonder, what can I do when I'm on my own? Can I... that's kind of the next challenge for me is kind of lowering my pacer dependence and challenging myself there.
That's awesome.
That is good. We even talked about that in
Yeah,
one
no,
of
we
our
didn't get a
shows.
chance to talk about that, but she just answered the question.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what would your advice be to a new trail runner? Not necessarily an ultra
Yeah,
runner, but just someone that's
sure.
getting into the trails. What's advice you have? Because you were there.
Yeah.
From the other side.
Absolutely. I think some of the best things is, one, give yourself time to get used to the trail and really allow yourself to feel and enjoy what the experience is like, sort of like this mindful thing we talked about. I think some of the best things about trail are the quiet, and if you can kind of learn how to enjoy that quiet and get out there, the more you do it, the more you probably start to crave it. So
Yeah.
I think just give yourself the time to find your own path in it, and make sure you connect with the people, the community, like we talked about, these people that can teach you how to do it. So
Dang, we could end there, but we got a couple more good ones
Yeah,
here.
we do.
All right.
That was a good one.
That was we can Anyway, so beard or clean shaven?
Oh, for me personally, I haven't grown a beard lately.
Okay.
But I like a clean shaven guy. My boyfriend currently has long hair, and I like his long hair.
Oh, lucky duck, he can have long hair.
that was pretty funny.
Yeah, he has hair. It's good.
It is. While you're looking the list over, do you drink beer?
I do drink a beer every
Top
now
3
and
beers.
then.
Go.
I don't know if I can name 3, but I
2.
will say my
Give me
top
top 2.
one is
Top 1?
Epic, smoked and oaked.
Oh,
I'm all about that smoked and oaked beer.
Local brewery
Yeah,
here,
local.
Salt Lake City.
I like a local beer, and then honestly,
Okay, give me your second one.
the second one. It's gonna be another Epic.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Nothing
They
wrong
have
with
like
that.
a sage beer or
Oh.
like
something.
a saison.
Yeah. the
Yeah.
sage
I've tried the
saison.
sage, and I honestly that just didn't do it for me. But I
Really?
know
Okay.
exactly.
You know what you
which
can
one
do with
if
that
you
now?
like sage.
Yeah,
And
if you like
I
that.
think I've told you this before. You can cook a whole chicken in a sage saison, and
Oh,
it is
yeah.
so good.
I'll try that then.
Yeah.
That sounds really good, actually.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll let you off the hook. But they got to be zingers, though. So here's a good one. This was
Save
given.
the best for last.
This question was actually emailed to us from one of our listeners and fan supporters, Lindsay Locke. So Lindsay, here you go. Here's your question: would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
Ooh. I'll take the first one.
You'd rather
that's a big
fight
beak.
one horse-sized duck.
Yeah, I will take on that duck any day. I don't know
You
how
can smack
fast
it in
they
the-
can
smack it in the
waddle
beak.
after me.
Fly fast though.
A great question.
That is good. That came from one of the supporters of the show.
Thank
I think
you,
we can wrap it up.
Lindsay.
That's right. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you very much.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today again. Thanks for driving up here. We really hope you enjoyed yourself. We've really enjoyed getting to know you
Yep.
and some of the great wisdom you've taught us even. So we will schedule another show. You're not going to be off the
Absolutely.
hook yet.
Nope, not yet. Especially leading up to Western. We're going to get you
Yeah.
before Western and after.
Oh,
after
good.
that.
You're going to motivate me.
There
That's
we
good.
go. We will
I'll
definitely
take it.
do that.
Yep.
So we'll sign off now. But again, take a look at the show notes. Best way to get a hold of Suzanne. Suzanne, thank you for your time, and we are out.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for your doing.
Thank you for listening to the Trail Manners podcast. We'd like to thank Suzanne Lewis for taking time out of her schedule to join us today. We'd also like to thank Canis and Park City Running Company for being such gracious hosts and mixing up these sweet dirty chives. We could also like to encourage you to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Trail Manners, or swing by our website at trailmanners.com. Until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.